Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for the Challenge World Championships. That's right, it's premiere episode time, and for this season, I have brought in a mercenary to be my co-host on the podcast. His name is Kahuna, aka BK, and he has about 5 Aussie slurs per podcast. Kahuna, how are you doing?
Very good. So I've been brushing up on all my Aussie slang slurs, all of it. I've got it ready to go because we are here for the World Championship, and I'm stoked because straight out the gates, we had an amazing couple of episodes of the new dawn of what is going to be the World Championship of the Challenge, and I'm excited. It was great. It was great.
So excited to talk about this season. So excited, Kahuna, to have you on the podcast to help us decipher what the hell Grant gets up to and what both Grant and Troy talks about every single episode, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of Aussie slurs that we will need to decipher. Being a Kiwi / South African, living in New Zealand, there's a lot of similarities with some of the slurs, but there's also some that I still get caught out on every now and again. But before we get into the podcast, I wanted to address the elephant in the room for those that are tuning in live, for those that are going to be following along as we cover this season, and for those that are wondering, why am I not podcasting with Drew and Chantel this season? This is basically going to be this season for me with my time schedule. Sometimes myself and Kahuna will be able to do it live. Sometimes we'll have to pre-record and we will then have to premiere it, and I will try and be in the comment section as well, because it just depends on when we have availability. It just so happens that this week, both myself and Kahuna had availability to do it live. So we're very excited because I love getting the audience involved. I love having the comments come in for us to react to it. So we'll try and do as many of those live as we can. I've also spoken to both Drew and Chantel, and we will be doing 3 get-togethers. So look at it kind of like the Avengers movie, in Marvel, where everybody goes and has their own movie, and then they come back for those big events. That will be us this season. So myself, Drew, and Chantel will get together 3 times this season. I believe it's going to be episode 4, episode 7, and the finale. Those will be the points where we will come together to have our thoughts come together as well on that one. But let's say hello to a few people here in the live. Andre Lee saying that fingers crossed that Turkey has their own version of the challenge very soon. Obviously, we've had 2 players from Turkey, one of them being Turbo before, so I think it probably could be a big one over there. Hector Flores, all the way from Mexico, saying that the challenge should have their own version in Mexico. So I hope this will grab the audience's attention so that they have it's even bigger around the world. And I think that it will. I've got a feeling in my bones this is going to be a big season. Andre saying, yes, they should also have it in Greece and France. Both have Survivor that has lasted over 20 seasons. And I think you international people jumping on the podcast saying this is why this has been a really good move by MTV's The Challenge to widen their audience and get people from different countries involved in wanting to watch the show, because they potentially could be sitting on top of a gold mine if these seasons take off in other areas as well. Lovable Nikki, welcome in the chat. Chris, welcome in the chat as well. Chrissa, welcome in the chat. Kahuna is the MVP of this season.
Hey.
He will be. By the end of the podcast, I've got a feeling everybody's going to love, by the end of the season, Kahuna and his takes on this. Zuduman, welcome back as well. Chris made me eat my words, of course, because I did enjoy the episode. Because me and you have been going back and forth about this season. Dolores, welcome all the way from Florida. Zach in the chat as well. South Africa definitely needs its own The Challenge, because it's got phenomenal characters that have played Survivor. And I know Rob Bentele and Chappies both want to be on The Challenge. And I even think there's a few, like Mariska wants to be on it. There's quite a few really good contenders from there as well. Lil Smurfy, an island version of The Challenge could be funny to watch also as well, especially if they get Conor McGregor on it. I would be watching it. I would be down for it. Can you imagine the smack talk, Kahuna, before Conor McGregor goes down in each of the eliminations?
I think if Americans have any difficulty at all with the Aussie accent, here having all Irish, they'll just be completely lost. They're like, no, this is just like watching Argentina.
I just want to see Conor McGregor walk up there like with a walk and be like, you do nothing. You do nothing.
That'd be amazing. Well, we had what was the Irish guy's name last season on the main show, on the flagship?
Oh, I know you're talking about.
He was such fun.
He was fun. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
actually.
He wasn't the greatest competitor, but he was fun.
Yui?
He was a good.
Was it Yui or something like that? Forgot his name.
I forget what it was. Yeah.
Welcome, Yuan and Amy as well. Charlotte got it for Nathan, but was a silver lining for Tristan. Charlotte, Team UK is in a lot of trouble from the start. Charlotte is from the UK as well, so I'm sure you're supporting your fellow country men and women out there, even though the women did extremely well in this first episode. Doug, I've made the live. Welcome to the live. Natalie saying, finally, I get on a live. Hi from Brazil. Welcome.
Brazil.
Hector saying, Garbo. And Andre Lee, George and Simon for the challenge global. Yeah, agreed. Well, I don't know how George.
Simon, yeah.
George should be
Simon seems like he's perfectly made for the challenge. Actually, the way he's been performing in challenges lately, it seems like there'd be a very good transition to the challenge as well.
100%. All right, Kahuna, let's get into it. We've said hello to as many people as we can here. The Challenge World Championship is upon us, and I was so excited, Kahuna, because this season is being filmed where I grew up. I lived in Cape Town, South Africa for the majority of my life prior to moving to New Zealand, and it was so cool to see Table Mountain in the backdrop, to see them at Cape Town Stadium, which my rugby team plays from. So I have a really big love for that stadium that they were in. And one of the things people may not have known, Kahuna, is there's so much history to South Africa. If you were to go outside of Cape Town Stadium, where you run and where they had to hit the tires with the hammer, the sledgehammer, if you look from there, you can actually see Robben Island on the distance where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 18 years of his 27-year history as well. So much history around that area where they were playing. I'm not too sure if any of the Americans would have known that, though.
I mean, Americans don't know a lot of anything outside of America sometimes, but it looked beautiful, and it certainly added, like, just walking into that stadium for the first shots and with the helicopters coming in when they're bringing in the legends, it just felt like the epic scale. And I don't know if Paramount Plus has a bigger budget than the MTV side, but it just felt like a really big, epic production. And when everyone was mentioning before about Greece and France and Ireland and South Africa, I think this could be the seed. This is the start. Every the biggest events in the world as far as the sporting world goes, the Olympics and the World Cup, because everyone supports their own country. And when you started off with 4, you've got the UK, you've got Australia, you've got Argentina, of course the US. But why not expand out and seeing it on this grand platform that is beautiful Cape Town, setting it out for us, was awesome to start off the show, I think.
Yeah, and I think they must have loved that location, because we know that All-Stars, the next All-Stars 4 season, is going to also be filmed, I believe, in South Africa. I'm not too sure if it's going to be exactly the same place, but they seem to do back-to-back seasons at the moment at the same location, because obviously they get to create a network of people that they can work with to set up the challenges and things like that. So no complaints from me, because they at least keep moving. Like, the challenge is putting, like everybody in the live knows, I'm the biggest Survivor fan. Like I was basically, I grew up watching Survivor. I was born and bred for being out and playing Survivor. But I feel like the challenge is putting Survivor to shame when it comes to doing these global events, getting different countries to come together, going to different locations, keeping it interesting in that way. They're doing a bloody good job at it at the moment. But it felt really good seeing all these different teams get together there. Kuna, I know that you watched the Challenge USA. Did you get to watch any of the other franchises before watching this season as well? Because for me, Argentina is the only one I'm coming in dark. I've not seen Argentina.
I mean, I did watch Australia. we watched that.
Obviously, yeah.
We watched that one together. I didn't watch the UK either. I've had it all listed, and I was like, it's 5 episodes. I'll do that in one afternoon, kind of thing. And then it just never sort of happened. But I didn't mind that, not knowing Argentina and not knowing the UK. I felt like we were watching those episodes of the challenge where there would be new challenges coming in, either fresh meat seasons or the last few seasons with the international guests, and you have that getting to know them period and really sussing out who is going to be good and who do you like and who stands out immediately and who's making good impressions. And not only did the legends get to do that with the new challenges or the MVPs and champions, but we got to do it as well for a lot of people that you don't necessarily know. You get to fall in love with them brand new, so that was cool.
Yeah, Chris Todd here in the live saying as well. Oh, I also didn't watch the UK or Argentina, but I'm glad the episodes told us who they were. And obviously, we're going to talk quite a bit about the UK because they were one of those teams that stood out a little bit in the first episode. But for me, I agree with you. I got that feeling of fresh meats where they had to go and do all these trials beforehand. But this time it was reversed, and we had the newbies who are coming in because they're not technically fresh meat. Like a lot of these people have won their own season. A lot of these people have actually gone through a season of the challenge. So they're probably better prepared than anybody was when they did fresh meats, but they get to choose their legends. And Kahuna, I actually really love the fact that they turned it on the legends because the legends are so used to this game now. They've played some of them 20 plus seasons of the show. They're always in control and they always know how to game the system. But with it now being turned on its head where the newbies get to select their legends, I thought it was a really cool twist to start the season off.
Yeah, and I actually I have heard some commentary that people were really down on the first episode specifically because the legends were kind of there on the sideline and not involved and not being the characters that we've grown to love over the years. But I really appreciated the way they did that, that it gave some shine and gave some time for the newbies to actually get settled and find their own feed and really get some airtime, get some screen time, start developing their own stories, but also allowed them to actually have a little bit of planning, a little bit of time where they're figuring out their own kind of strategies and they're working out alliances amongst themselves before introducing the legends. Because I think the legends really would have just dominated the entire play and they're leading the conversations, they're leading the flow. But by giving them that opportunity first and allowing them to pick, it does put the shoe on the other foot, if you will, and give a bit of chance for the newbies to really kind of control what's going on, at least at the start, and see how that integrates. So the legends have to be the ones integrating, not the other way around.
Yeah, and listen, there's always two sides to every single argument, right? Like, I know the people that have been watching this show for many years, they've grown to love their favorites. They want their favorites to be the center of attention on the show. For me, as a newer school fan of the show, you know, going back, obviously did go back and watch the earlier seasons, but starting quite late in the game and also knowing a lot of these players that are coming in from outside of this, from Survivor and that, I actually kind of like you said, you know, to see the new players being highlighted a little bit, to see the strategy revolve around them. And I do think that this is going to be a very different season to what people are used to when it comes to legends, because normally the legends or the veterans of the game, they are just dominant when it comes to playing the game and strategizing and letting the flow of the game go the way they want. But you and I have spoken about this off air. When you've got people like Ben, Sarah, and Danny coming in this season, all really good strategists in their own right, all people that have played a good game on Survivor. They're not Michelle, they're not Jay, they're not pushovers. You know, Natalie Anderson would have been another great example of someone that I think would have been a great player, but she would have been on her own that season that she played. So this is going to be very different this season, is what I'm trying to get at. And I'm excited to see how it's going to play out. But Kahuna, we have to talk about the challenges that they had to do, the trials right before they got to select their legends that they wanted to play this season with. Who stood out for you? Who impressed you the most in this opening segment of the game?
I mean, coming in with expectations, like I sort of took a double take when I saw the casting of Grant Crap from Challenge
You and I
Australia.
both, by the way. Like
We did. We're like,
I just want to add this here. Like on the draft that myself, Drew, and Chantel did, none of us wanted to touch Grant. Grant was the second last person picked from the men's side of things. And what a turnaround for Grant to come onto this season and absolutely dominate in the first two episodes. I love being wrong, and I love for people to go out there and prove me wrong. And I think Grant really did it in these first two episodes.
and he wasn't a dickhead. At
Yes,
least not in the
that was
first
a
couple
big one.
episodes. Yeah. So that was huge. He did impress me and he did surprise me. The fact that he was so dominant across two episodes. It's not like he had a good showing and then kind of fell back. He carried it on. He chose wisely when he got the opportunity. He's making good decisions. I don't know necessarily if that'll play out through across the entire season. We know that he's the reason why he maybe wasn't as popular in his first season in Australia is because he doesn't really take crap from other people. And if there's going to be, he's not really like wanting to politic. He's playing hard, and obviously he's balls to the wall and just goes at it like he does. But it could, I think, end him in hot water with some of the people that we have on the show as well, which I'm excited for too. So far, he's not a dickhead, but we'll see if that actually
And
changes or not.
yeah, and I want to add the reason that I was so low on Grant coming into this season is that he proved in his season that he was good solo. He couldn't play with partners. He never respected the woman that he was playing with in that season. And, we've seen rookies make these mistakes before, that they can't work with their partner and it never works out well. But he's clearly gone from that season. He's gone home and thought, what didn't work? And he's come back and suddenly he is becoming a great partner, even with Janae. And we'll talk about the fact that he chooses her later on. I felt like he worked really well with her. Maybe the reason is that now he's playing with people that isn't from a love show, people that he actually respects, that he thinks, well, this person has won 2 or 3 championships. They've got experience I don't have. They've got strengths I don't have. So that has made him a better team player coming into this season. I do want to read a couple of comments here as they're coming in as well. Lovable Nikki saying, I miss Natalie Anderson. I agree. I'd love for Natalie Anderson to come back. But I remember seeing Instagram live of hers where she said the chances of her going back is very slim, which is sad to hear. Hector saying, not Chris throwing shade at Michelle and Jay. I love Michelle and Jay, both. I think they're great characters on the show. But as Chris is saying here, in fairness to Michelle and Jay, Jay wasn't that strategic on Survivor either. And I think that Michelle's got a great social game, but when she's going up against people that have been friends for a very long time, that social game isn't enough. She needs a little bit more grunt to be able to pull through. Maybe in a couple of seasons, if they keep with Michelle in the game for long enough, I could see her become a strategic queen on the challenge as well. Dolores is saying, I'm not over Sarah as well. Yeah, I'm not over her either. I've never been over Sarah. I actually don't mind Sarah, as everybody here knows. I know some people don't like her. I don't necessarily get the hate, but we'll talk through that as we continue on with this live here tonight. But yeah, looking at it, another person who did extremely well from the start, Kahuna, was Ben. He was the first person out of the eating or drinking challenge, first to the tires. He only lost momentum when he got to the dexterity part where he had to balance on top of that, what would you call it, like a concrete slab that he had to roll from one side to the other.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big old boy, Ben, and I don't know if the cowboy hat throws off balance or something like that, but it's certainly one of the, but he's a gamer. We know that as well. Like, he's always going to be pushing on challenges. He's always going to be pushing on strategy. Ben's thing traditionally is probably maybe like relationships and social side might be the thing that gets him undone. But so far, the challenge is made for people like Ben who just want to push and push hard, and he's going to go at it. He's got the physical attributes. He said he's testing out his knee and his shoulder, which I'm worried about in such a grueling show like the challenge. Like, that was the first one that's put him through that, and it was like a mini final really to open up the show.
Yeah.
And the fact that he came through with flying colors shows what kind of gamer he is really, and it says a lot when you go, okay, so Grant was first, but both Danny and Ben right up there with the US as well. So they're coming in second and third is a huge showing for Challenge USA.
Yeah, Danny coming in, obviously we knew he was going to be a force to be reckoned with, and seeing him do extremely well here. He says that, he's had to prove himself in the NFL year after year being drafted, so it's nothing new for him to come in and prove himself again. So it was exciting to see him. I do want to bring up a few more comments here. Lissy saying, Grant has been great so far. His podcast on The Official is hilarious too. He eats bananas up. I think you listened to that one, right?
It was so good. I said to you, like, offline, I was like, I think watching the Australian version, Grant was an Aussie amongst Aussies, and he was just one of many, and where the personality, but seeing the contrast of him being so unfiltered and unadulterated Australian and just really bogan. For those that in the States, that's probably our version of maybe like redneck. He would be, and seeing that against the backdrop of US and interacting with US people and hearing the way he talks, like he was talking with Davon and Anissa on the official podcast, and just speak. He didn't filter himself or change any of his words that they might even understand. He's just talking, and they had to figure it out along the way. And I love that. That's kind. When it was on the Australian version, that didn't really appeal to me. But seeing it now, I love that he's just like, I don't care. I am who I am, and I'm gonna be that I'm Grant Crap. He even made fun of his own name. So that's kind of how he is.
Lil Smurfy here says Grant is an underestimated warrior like Kyle, like Derek, and like Jordan, and these type of people are nice to like, really. I do know that even in his season, he was constantly fighting in elimination. So for him going into eliminations, even in the opening sequence, he said, I know these guys are legends, but it won't matter to me. I'll take them down one by one. So I feel like that foreshadows Grant this season being a warrior again and someone that's probably going to go into some eliminations and take out some big names in this game. And I'm here for it. I want to see it play out. Lizzie says Ben is loyal to a fault. That might get him in trouble. I agree. And, you know, in the Survivor circles, Ben gets a lot of unnecessary hate thrown his way. So I really hope that with the challenge, Ben can find his people and that the challenge fans will embrace him. Because when I look at Ben, I look at a good dude. I look at a guy who went out to go and fight for his country. You know, they even show that. Now he's fighting for his country again on the show. And Ben gets hate because on the season of Survivor that he played, it was the first season that had a fire-making challenge at the Final Four, and he won against someone that people thought should have won that season. But that's not Ben to blame for it. That's a production thing. And we should normalize blaming production, not players, when things like that is being thrown into it. Like Ben doesn't have the clout to tell Jeff what to do. You know, so let's just remember that when we start hating on some of these people. Hector saying, I just hope that Ben saying that about his knee and his shoulder isn't foreshadowing a medical DQ. Same. I mean, and Ben goes hard. Like, he goes hard. Like, I mean, he's a Marine, right? So those people get trained when they go through a door, they have to bust in being fearless, right? Because they don't know what's on the other side of the door when they're smashing through it. So I think that that's the problem. He probably doesn't know his own limits, and it's going to get tested on this season. Odette saying Danny is already using Sarah as a shield. And yeah, that's true. I mean, listen, that's a smart strategy because Sarah only knows how to play at 120 Kuna. She doesn't know how to play at a 90% game, right? Oh, we might have lost Kuna.
They're blocking me.
Oh, there we go. Got you back now.
Back in, yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to say Sarah only knows how to play at 120. She doesn't know how to play at 80% game. So it's good for Danny to jump behind her, probably.
Yeah, and she puts herself out there as well. What I was saying when I did get cut off was that scene in the USA when she's in the stadium and they're putting the noughts and crosses down. And they're blocking me, and just telling everyone. And I'm like, yep, that's a shield. Put it out there. That's okay. You can be at the front and people take shots at you. Because I do love Sarah, and her seasons on the Survivor were great. Her season on the Challenge.
By the way, she's a legend. I see her as a legend on Survivor. I know a lot of people will probably argue with me on that, but she was one fire-making challenge away from winning Winners at War. Let's not forget, if she beats Tony at Winners at War with a fire-making challenge, she probably wins that season and becomes the second two-time winner.
Instead of Tony, which would be massive, right? And arguably, that as two-time winners, like we know that we're talking a lot of Survivor, but Tony's two-time is probably better than, for me anyway, in my opinion, is better than Sandra's two-time. And I think Sarah would have had that same claim as well. So she could be arguably the GOAT if a fire-making challenge had gone differently, which is...
And having a personality like Sarah in this season, like you could even see in this episode when they go back to the house, when they have to deliberate about who's going to go into the elimination against the two players that lost, she kind of dominated the strategic talk and really got her way, I felt like, in the early stages here. But before we go into that, let's talk about the sort of two winners from the female side, because I don't want to jump over it. Shout out to Team UK for having two females represent right at the top. Zara ends up winning it for Team UK, and then Kaz is the second placed female on that side of things. Now, I did watch the UK. I know you didn't watch it, and I was surprised to see Zara pull out the first win, because Kaz was in my mind, the more dominant player that season, even though Zara was the runner-up. So hats off to her for doing extremely well within this first challenge. Like you said, it's kind of a mini final. So if you can win this, it shows you've got the potential. The only thing it doesn't have is the length of time that a final can go for. It could go over 2 days. But Zara did extremely well here in this moment as well. And then on the counter side of that, you had, I believe it was Claudia and Tristan. And Tristan is a UK champion, flaming out within the first episode and in the first challenge.
UK just rocks and diamonds, like two females that really were amazing, getting first and second. And then Nathan was good, but as far as the end result goes. Really poor side from the males of the UK and really awesome showing from the females of the UK. Unfortunately, Nathan with medically separated, which is a new term, which is an interesting term. But Kaz is instant, like, leaps up to the top of challenge crushes for me. From one episode, I was
She's a
like,
cutie. She's a
she's
cutie.
amazing. Yeah.
And
Good
and
on
a
you, Theo.
badass. And
Yeah.
a badass. Not good on you, Theo. Bad on you, Theo, for not
Yeah, that's
locking her in. Bad
No,
on you,
she was
Theo.
great. Yeah. And Zara as well. Like, just I noticed that they spoiled or foreshadowed the picks when they get the legends to comment on their performance. And it
Yeah,
was yeah, Wes commenting on how amazing Zara was, and it was just really, like, obvious as to
obvious.
who was going to end up. But the fact that what they were saying, though, how he was so impressed with how fast she was, and really blew them away, that they were, quite impressed to see it, says a lot. It says a lot about them. So yeah, UK, strong women. Men certainly letting them down. I mean, they even said about Tristan, right? They were like, he was a bit of a dark horse because he didn't do anything until the final.
And
And
it's
I didn't
true.
watch that, but yeah, so it's interesting that it's not
I did
playing
not
out for
think he
him
was going to
early
win that
either.
season. I did not think Tristan was winning that season. There was another guy in the chat, might help me here, a shorter guy, also like blonde hair, kind of reminded me of the Troy of the Challenge UK. And I thought he would win that season. And I was surprised they didn't invite him back this season as well. But then Nathan is a really big personality, so I can kind of understand why they went Nathan, because they were always going to get the champion to come and represent the UK if they could. But Tristan was a dark horse, and yeah, so here we go. I think it's AJ was the name of the other person, I think. So yeah, so basically Kahuna, with this, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season now, because we know who the people are to watch out for. Tristan, he gets extremely lucky in this episode because of Nathan being DQ'd. And what a loss to the challenge to lose Nathan so early on, because, in his season, he carried a lot of the confessionals. He was really good at getting into an alliance and having numbers on his side at all times. I think having Tristan there and having the two girls actually means that the UK is completely going to get decimated or going to get split from each other, and they're not going to be a cohesive team, because I feel like Nathan would have been the glue for that team to keep them together.
And we saw it early on. He was the one, like, from the get-go, driving strategy, driving alliances, reaching out to Troy and saying, hey, how about the UK and the Aussies kind of do something here together? And he was a great character for a very brief moment in time. I think the women are obviously very strong, and they're buoyed by the fact that they've chosen Wes and Jordan. Like, that may be some protection to keep them in the game. But as you're right, as a team, the UK, it's looking difficult for them. They got a hard hill to climb ahead, because just based on numbers, but also Tristan doesn't seem to be carrying the side for them as well. So I don't know. Like, I think the fact that what we saw early in that first episode, you said Sarah was driving a lot of the strategy. I love that they pushed to see what would happen in a stalemate, which is interesting that they would immediately try to figure that out. But the fact that they saw that with Argentina, they were numbers, but also numbers that they could probably manipulate or at least control a little bit better. And the UK and the Aussies were forced together, which didn't have the numbers, unfortunately, because Grant and Zara were in the room deciding. So yeah, early on, great strategy from Sarah, and really kind of throwing their weight around with the UK people, not able to pull anything together and forced to go with the USA's will.
Yeah, let's bring up a few more comments here that has come in since we've spoken. Christina Chong saying, hey, Chris and Kahuna, I'm late and so glad you guys are covering the challenge. Well, Christina, we love having you here, and we love talking about the challenge. So buckle up. We're going to be here the whole season talking about this. Also here, Andrew Lee saying, what is the solution to the puzzle Claudia and Tristan were stuck on? Because I'm feeling perplexed and feeling stupid. So where can I find examples of these online to practice? That's one of the things I will say about the challenge. Whenever I look for merchandise for the challenge online, they don't do a good job compared to Survivor, where you can buy puzzles, you can buy all these different things. The challenge seems to be a lot more difficult to get it. It seems to be a lot more niche. So if anybody from production or the challenge ever listens to this podcast, they're probably not, but if they are, you guys should try and go there. There is probably a market for people who would love to buy some of these puzzles. I personally, Kuna, have not seen this puzzle before on the challenge. I feel like it's a new one, but I could be wrong. And if I am, let me know in the in the live. I've seen most of the seasons only once as I tried to backtrack to the earlier seasons. But basically, from memory, it was they had to determine the weight difference between each one of them and go from either the heaviest to the lightest or the lightest to the heaviest. And that would give them a code to unlock the puzzle, basically, is how I sort of understood it.
Yeah, they don't. The challenge isn't. They're like puzzles are important and puzzles are a big part of it, but we're not going to explain it to the viewer. You just have to watch and trust that people are because they didn't really go into and you're seeing it play out and you kind of figure it out in context. But Tristan obviously wasn't getting it.
No, he's not good at weighing things against each other because that seemed to be the most complicated part of it. So I don't know what the strategy would be if your perception of maybe he's just lifted too much weights in his life and everything just feels extremely light, because he's a big boy. So maybe him doing a lot of workouts, like Wes said, it's not about lifting weights, it's about running and endurance instead of lifting weights, which I thought was very interesting advice that he gave to Zara in this season. But Dara Rupert, welcome to the live, says, it's too bad we lost Nathan. I think he would have done well. I've watched Tristan on Made It on Chelsea for years, and I suspected he wouldn't be a puzzle master. That doesn't sound too good. Charlotte is saying he was a professional dancer on Strictly Come Dancing. That's AJ. So the UK's version of the USA Dancing with the Stars. And I tell you what, AJ needs to be brought back. I was impressed with him in his season. He wasn't a big guy. He was kind of the Troy of the UK. And he also went up against his brother in an elimination. Him and his brother both played. And I think there was his older brother who was a lot bigger than him. The same one Troy won. He won against his brother. So again, he just reminded me of him so much. Very smart player. Dara says, I heard not everybody could film. Yeah, I definitely think some people said no. I don't think Argentina had any of the champions. There was one champion for the Argentina and she was not on it.
I heard Argentina was basically done 10 days before filming the World Championship. So there was people that got deep into the finals and the champion that were like, no mas, we're tired as hell. So a very quick turnaround, and they chose basically the best of who was available.
Yeah.
And Argentina, out of their depth, I think across the board, they're going to be floundering. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they look like fun. Like they look like the group of people that I would want to hang around if I was there. I mean, we see that fun scene with Justine dancing with Rodrigo, and it looked like Sarah immediately got along with Argentina really well as well. They seem to be a lot of fun to be around, but I don't think strategically they're ready for the game that is about to unfold. Yeah. And Odette kind of brings up a great comment here. Odette is a loyal listener of the podcast, someone that follows Survivor like myself, diehard Survivor fan, and he's asking, as someone who haven't watched much of the challenge, how are the players strategically? Will a player like Sarah run circles around them, or are they the same level of sword? I can tell you that there is going to be opposition to Sarah this season. You've got some great strategic players. Like Wes is the biggest strategic player out there in my mind. And I'm very interested. I've always said if we could choose one challenger to go play Survivor, Wes would be that person for me. I reckon he would be very good at any strategic game. But then you've also got other players that have played so many seasons, have won so many times, that they're all going to be very good. Casey is a great player. She won Big Brother. Maybe not the most entertaining, but she is good at maneuvering in the game. And then you've got people like Bananas, who's a 7-time champ. You've got people like Jordan. You've got Tori, who's just won a season. I can tell you that there is a lot of strategic firepower. And also, how can I forget Queen Janae? Janae all day. She's a really good strategic player. So, Odette, it's not going to be an easy game. But I'm looking forward to the Clash of the Titans this season, Kahuna.
It's going to be great. I mean, as far... like most of the cast of the Legends is pretty legendary. I think legend is a loose term applied to some of these people. And we can talk about who should not have that status and maybe who shouldn't have been casted. Nelly T. But I mean, yeah, there's some big hitters there and big players. And you're right. I think the strategy from the Challenge to Survive is very different. One thing, first of all, is that they can come back. Once you're voted out on Survivor, you're gone. There's no fallback unless it's from their alliance or the jury. There's no jury on the challenge, and it really comes down. Like, I think if I was to think about the challenge versus Survivor, a lot of the physical stuff can be very similar, but they're not starved and broken. It's almost like
it's mental. It's a lot more mental, yeah.
Yeah, Survivor is a lot more mental. The challenge is probably a lot more physical. There is strategy involved, and they politic to not go down. And then they also have to have a long-term view because so many of them are recurring characters, and those relationships and strategies actually play out over seasons or years or sometimes decades for some of these people. So it's a very different approach. To say that one's better than the other is not necessarily true, because they are the experts in their given game, and how that applies. Like so far, Survivor players have not fared very well. We haven't seen the same level of competency, I guess, in having a Sarah and a Ben and Danny in it as like you said, Michelle, Jay. Although we did have, who was the teacher? And I know Michaela was on it. She didn't do very well, and like I was excited
sorry,
for
I don't
her.
know the teacher. I don't know the teacher, but yeah, Michaela, I was excited.
Yeah,
But Michaela, taking notes, letting the notebook
yeah.
get found out. I want to bring up a comment here from Little Smurfy. He says, "I rather replace Nelson with Kyle or someone similar to Kyle." I found it hilarious that Nelson's speciality was heart.
Oh,
It's got a lot of heart, Nelson.
Yeah, like Captain Planet, heart.
I love Kyle as well. I love Kyle. I think Kyle is a phenomenal character. I'm not too sure why he didn't make it. And then another UK person who's not on this season is Jenny West. She is like one of the female champions I think that have been treated the worst. We famously know I've been making the case for champions to automatically, if they win a season, they should be able to come back and defend it the next season. There should be no, we'll see if we get you back. If you win a season, you should have an automatic ticket to the next season, Kerner.
I agree with that. I think you got to defend your belt, and she can honestly say, like, we don't know if anyone's better than me because no one's beaten me since I won. Which, like, I don't know why if she's done something or slapped someone in the face, or Jenny West has been in the doghouse since being a champion. And I don't know why. She's lovely. I mean, she looks great.
She's a
on
bit
camera.
bland. She's a bit bland,
but so what?
But still,
like,
she won a championship. You got to.
They bring Casey back. They bring Casey back all the time. Like,
Jeez, mate.
So I don't know. I mean, I think from the men's side, the only one really missing would be CT, right? As far as being the.
I've got a feeling
legend.
CT declined. I've got a feeling CT said he was
going
to take a break.
He's got a lot going on at the moment.
He's got stuff going on in his personal life. I mean, if CT was there, this is already looking like an all-time cast just because of the pure competition that is out there. But if CT was there, I mean,
CT Finelli, and you pretty much got the top. Like, who else would? Like, yes, I think based off All Stars deserves to be in that legendary status, right? Yeah. And then you've got Wes, Jordan, Bananas, Darrell, right? Yes. Oh, Theo's not a legend, but we know physically and capability wise.
Listen, I think everybody is willing to turn a blind eye on them labeling him a legend because we want to see. We no. I didn't even think of that. Chris. I didn't even think of that. That was not what I meant. It's not what I meant. I didn't want to go there.
Don't pop champagne bottles, man. Don't pop champagne bottles.
But no, listen, Theo is awesome. Like, I was so happy to see him back this season. Listen, he's taking it. He's making fun of it out there when Bananas has got the champagne bottle, asking them not to pop the champagne bottle in his direction. So, but I'm so happy to see Theo. I'm happy to see what's going to happen between him and Cass because I don't know the history. I don't know what happened on I think it's Love Island because I don't watch Love Island, but I'm here for it. I want to see how it plays out. And Bananas is playing devil's advocate immediately, getting in there, right? And he's stirring.
That was good. That was very good. He's trying to get mum and dad back together. Although not actually his baby mama, I don't think. It's someone else. But yeah, interesting. On the you mentioned the champagne joke with the toast. Probably the worst Bananas has done in a long time. I don't know if he's out of practice or something. But I noticed when I was watching that, I got such a funny feeling because he was giving his speech up on the table, which is the normal Bananas challenge thing to do, but it did not get the same response from his audience, I don't think. And we're seeing a different show here. Like, it does look a lot slicker. It does look a lot better, but we noticed in the Challenge USA, just the age of the cast members is so much higher. And now that, like, we've got Argentina had Claudia was 45. Rodrigo looked like Argentinian Bananas, full head, grey hair. I think the Aussies in the UK are the youngest ones, and the USA probably. Even the youngest, who I think Amber's the youngest, are like 30 or 29 or something ridiculous. They're all older.
I would have thought Justine would be the youngest.
Probably. Oh, Justine, 28, 29. And they were doing the champagne, and everyone was just not like, the only people screaming up and down was the MTV challenge people because they know they have to. because Johnny Bananas is doing the toast and the cameras are on. Let's make it up. But everyone else is just standing around, kind of going, "Oh yeah, cool. We're here for a competition. We're older. We're not. It's not the same show." And I found that really fascinating to see, along with new people and new graphics and new slickness
Did you see
to
the cut? Did you see the cutscenes where they would go and like have this thin black go and like almost like a movie type of thing that they did? I
Yeah,
really enjoyed that. It's interesting you bring it out because it does seem like a more polished show, and
it
we've
does.
seen the challenge over the seasons, and some fans love it and some fans hate it. The show is evolving, and I don't think it's going to stop from evolving. It's like Survivor fans don't like where Survivor is currently at. A lot of old school challenge fans don't like where the challenge is currently at. So I get to experience it from both sides because on Survivor, I'm the salty old school fan who want things to be like it used to be with 39 days, minimal idols, minimal twists. And in the challenge, people used to love the college kids going out there, they had more like a frat party type of vibe to them. There was a lot of making out. There was a lot of messiness that happened with the show. But these people, this is what happens when you keep bringing the same people back every season. They're all now in their later 30s. They're getting into their 40s. They're mature people. They can't party like they used to when they were in their 20s. So I don't know what people expect. The show was always going to evolve, bringing people back season after season.
Yeah, and I think this iteration of it, making it the World Championship, it can still have the same fun and the same politics and same strategy, but it doesn't need to have that, like you said, the frat boy, like college kind of feel to it. Which is where the challenge really started from. But you're right, it's evolved. There's new audiences, new versions. You can still have the MTV version and get a lot of messy people like Messy Fessy, but Fessy maybe another one
Well,
that
people
could have
don't
made
even
this
like
list, I don't know.
Fessy. He's the
That's
most
right.
messy. He's the most messy player out there, but people don't like him. They don't like his messiness on the show. So I think people and let's talk about that for a second because who's this Casey that we saw this episode? Where's she been all this bloody time? Because suddenly I'm like, Casey is going around, she's talking to people, she seems a bit more social, like, it's early to say I'm going to start loving Casey on the screen because I don't have a problem with her as a person. I've always said I think she's probably the nicest person. She's the person you want as a friend outside of the show. But does that translate to being fun to watch on TV? It is a lot more fun to watch her play this game without Fessy, without Nani, and without Josh on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, who is this? That's not Casey. And I don't know if it was strategy because she's trying to come and like maybe project the social side. And one of the times we saw her doing that was with Grant, who, first pick overall. Was she just kind of politicking a little bit? But either way it is, I was excited to see it. To actually see Casey talk with a smile and excited and it's not about Nani. that was pretty great. For that, we have Danny talking about Kiki all the time, and we can get confused whether he's talking about his wife or Kiki in the game. So
I think they're gonna limit that a little bit this season because it would become very confusing. But obviously, him already having like, oh, well, Kiki's my wife's name, so I wouldn't mind working with them. And you can already see Team USA and Australia. There's some sort of synergy happening there because Sarah and Emily are connecting as two of the most physical players in the game. They want to work together. So I have an eye on Australia and USA potentially working together because the UK is down in numbers. Tristan doesn't look like an asset. You've got to align yourself with assets in the game. And then Argentina is being picked off. So I think it's going to come down to a showdown between Team Aussie and Team USA.
I mean, if they were smart, definitely that's where the strength seems to lie. But I mean, with the way the draft happened and some of the makeup, there's mixes all over the place as far as relationships and alliances, and the legends throw so much like spanners into the works. Anything that they were planning kind of gets stuffed up anyway, like depending on who they're with, you know what I mean? Like we saw glances of Danny and Tori maybe not enjoying themselves in future episodes. So it's very interesting. Like each team as well, like when you look at it, there's, except for some of the ones at the bottom, the Tristan and Nelson teams and that Kellyanne and Huhui, but so many teams are just stacked, right? You're like, none of them you go, well, that's a bad team.
Well, Lissy brings up an interesting comment here. She said Casey's convo with Troy was so awkward, laughed my ass out, but she was doing some classic Big Brother fishing with Janae, and that made me worried. And it's funny because she didn't know that Troy was the winner,
Australian.
And he was like, "Yeah, I won the show."
She didn't even know he's from Australia. I was like, "What? There's only like."
Are you from the UK?
that did annoy me. Like we've talked so many times about people who go on to Survivor and shows like the challenge with no knowledge, and I'm like, unless you weren't filming Argentina, I know Ride or Dies was very recent, but it wasn't 10 days later. If you knew you're coming back for this, at least maybe look up who they
Nah,
are.
these people don't
Like,
watch these people don't watch the show. They just go and
man,
play in it. They don't watch it, and normally they don't have to because when they go back, they already know everyone. But this time they
that's true.
did have a little bit of homework to do. But I will say one good thing: when I interviewed Troy after his win on the Challenge Australia on this channel as well, for those that haven't seen it, I asked him, "Who would you most like to work with in the future if you did get to play next to MTV players?" And he said Amber and Casey. So bringing those two up in that interview, it's interesting. I feel like Casey and Troy, we saw that conversation for a reason. There's probably going to be some good synergy. I wouldn't be surprised if Casey does work with Amber this season, even though Lil Smurfy here is saying that Casey is weird case among MTV people because she's either boring, green with envy, or a rude person to Amber, or just cuddling Nani. But now it feels weird. I think that she's always tried to keep Amber at arm's length, and there's always been a weird thing between the two of them. But maybe this season being the only two Big Brother people there, that familiarity might be something that Casey relies on in the game. So I can kind of see them potentially working together to a certain degree, especially if Team USA and Team Australia do work together. There's going to be a lot of synergy between those teams, and they may find a way to work together as well. Hector says we need to see Casey by herself without his safety net of the Big Brother Alliance. Well, we're going to see it this season, that's for sure. All right, let's get a little bit before we get into the teams, because a lot of people are starting to bring up the teams, and I do want to talk about the teams. Let's talk a little bit about the vote itself. I just wanted to bring up, it was hilarious to see, obviously Sarah and the USA team got what they wanted. They got, two people from the UK, one from the UK, and then one from Australia put in for a potential elimination. So Kaz and Kiki being the two people nominated. And they did it on purpose because Sarah said she wanted to see what would happen in this game if there was a tie. And I thought that was very smart because we a lot of times don't know what will happen in that case. And we do see that Zara stands tall here. She doesn't want to budge. And she's ready to go in for Kaz. That's the loyalty she has for Kaz in this game. Some people may look at that as a stupid thing, but I will say if Zara ever plays the game in the future again, people seeing that loyalty, she's going to become a number that a lot of people want to work with in this game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I don't know if that was the thought process. She wasn't playing the long game here.
No.
She's just loyal down to the soil, and she was standing by her girl. I am one of those people that thinks, yeah, maybe not the smartest thing to do this very early on. But that's a really good point, Chris, that people looking at it, especially these legends, if they ever merge and consolidate casting, which we know they're not afraid to bring overseas people onto the main show.
This is the breeding grounds now moving forward, in my mind.
Yeah. Which is good things for us Aussies, I think, because we don't have much of a chance outside of this with the way Challenge Australia went. But I mean, it was good from Sarah to kind of figure it out, and seeing that early and push for that is a sign of, like we said, that survivor mentality, the strategy, like super hard, super pushing all the time. But I don't know, because it's not going to play out in the rest of the game. It was that episode 0 kind of thing where it doesn't matter if you force that, because I don't necessarily think that tiebreaker will play the same way once you've made the draft and pick players and all that. So I don't know if it's going to work out that way. So it might not have been good to push so hard and put people off. And really, I mean, we saw how upset Kiki was by it all. And so who knows, like maybe it comes back to bite her that she was pushing that hard in that early, didn't even have partners, sort of nothing yet. And she's putting people off. So who knows?
I don't think it's going to come back to bite her in the sense that Kiki is on the outs in Team Aussie for some other reason. I feel like she is on the outs. Troy, I can see working very easily with Emily and Grant, but I know Emily didn't want to lose Kiki this early in the season, but she doesn't look like she is that phased when it comes to actually having Kiki in the game. In fact, I think there's a bit of a rivalry being set up between the two of them. Emily might want to go out there and take revenge for losing an elimination against Kiki, but I loved seeing Kiki go down there. I loved seeing her kick ass because she did it in her own season as well. I picked her, Kahuna, as my number 1 draft pick for the season. And I got and I had a lot of people, I think I dropped a few jaws when I did that in the draft picks, but I was that confident because she impressed me so much coming into that season. She was the batchy girl. She was all about the makeup and, living this high life. And you're like, she doesn't have grunt to her, probably. I was wrong. And I love being proven wrong by people. She's got a lot of heart. She's good. I mean, she was doing stuff down there, creating moves that the godfather of pole wrestling didn't know about himself, Wes, and doing splits to get the pole out of Claudia's grip. So, and she didn't go against someone that was bad at eliminations either. Apparently, Claudia won like 3 or 4 in her own season.
Yeah, I mean, not only like just that small snippet from Kiki, I'm hoping that the edit means that she's going to go far, because we saw Wes banging on like the splits, how he's so impressed. At the same time, Jordan was like turning back to bananas, going, "Ooh, did you see that?" And everyone was commenting about how amazing she was, and that doesn't happen a lot from the vets, especially like, you know, they have to see something unique and something different they haven't seen before to actually be that impressed, and they were. And it says a lot about Kiki. We mentioned earlier the official challenge podcast with Anissa Devon and Grant, and Grant just kept going on about how smart Kiki is, that it doesn't necessarily come across because she has that Barbie look to her, but he's saying that she is incredibly smart and so
I could pick it up.
I'm excited.
In the conversation that I had with her, again, another interview that I had on this channel was with Kiki after she won the Challenge Australia. So if you want to go check it out at any point. Just by having that conversation with Kiki, I could pick up. There's a lot going up on there, and I can see Kiki very easily becoming a mainstay on the MTV show as well. She's one of those people I can see go over and do extremely well over a period of time. Now, I did also want to say, having these new players in, this is why it's exciting to get new players to play the challenge, because now you've got people like Sarah pushing TJ when the vets have been conditioned by TJ to be scared of him. Like, they're so conditioned. Like, everybody's like, oh no, you don't want to do that. You can't have TJ decide, but that is the reason why it's fun to have new people come in like Sarah, who is going to push the envelope and give us a different outcome. So for me, I think it's a W all round to have someone new come in and do this. Ryan does have a good question, though. He says, will a tiebreaker be the same for teams? I don't know if that will be the same, because I think this time it worked out that way because there was no men's elimination. So the only person who would have been at risk is Zara. So it would have actually been unfair for Zara to go down and have to defend herself after outright winning the daily, because basically she would have been forced to change her vote in this scenario if Grant didn't change his vote, because she would have been the only one at risk. So I kind of think that it might be different in the future moving forward. But after this, we finally get to a point where the teams get selected, and the number 1 draft pick out of the gate is going to be Janae all day. Were you surprised to see Grant go to Janae for this first pick?
I was, because I don't think Grant actually knew who Janae was leading up to it. Based on the way he was talking, one thing that I do like about the pick is that he actually did it based on the conversation he had with her as well. So it was based on that by MTV, or by them setting up that they had this time together to actually talk and figure things out. It wasn't done on the first day based purely on image and looks or knowing who they are. It was based on that, which is great for Grant, because I don't think he knew who anyone was prior to it. Janae is obviously a great pick for him. I think she balances him out well, especially with her puzzle, her social. It could be trouble for Janae, though, with Grant having no filter. And if he does run into trouble with people, Janae's not going to like that, because her thing is, let's avoid going down into elimination, where Grant's probably going to be like, I'll take anyone on, I don't care. So that could backfire on Janae, but great pick from Grant, I think. I don't know who, if there was anyone better, really. Maybe like a Tory.
Well, not for Grant.
Pick, yeah, not for Grant, for sure.
So you have to pick someone that's going to complement your weaknesses, and Grant doesn't have the strength when it comes to puzzles. So getting someone like Janae in there, I think, is a Hail Mary pick for Grant specifically at this point. And I was impressed by him actually getting it right, especially after getting it wrong so many times in the Australian season. So like I said, it was a complete opposite. I was a little bit worried for Janae, because she's had this experience with people like Zach, who was a toxic partner in the game. And I was like, I just don't want that to be the case if we get Grant from the Challenge Australia playing this season, but clearly he is playing a different game. And it also shows you that people can change from one season to another season. Not that he was ever at Zach's level, so I kind of feel bad mentioning him in the same breath as Zach, but he wasn't great for his female partners in his season as we saw it. But yeah, solid pick overall. I'm very interested to see how that team is going to go. Kaz got the second pick here of the show, or the first male pick, and she went with Jordan. What did you think of Kaz's pick to go and get Jordan, being the first pick of? Sorry, it wasn't Kaz. Was it Zara?
Yeah.
So this was the second
Zara
pick.
went with Wes.
That's the one. What did you think of Wes being picked first up?
I love that Bananas hated it so much that he wasn't the number one pick. I think it's pretty good because as much as Bananas is, statistically the number one pick, he brings a certain spotlight, he brings certain baggage with him, as does Wes, as does all of them. But I think Wes, being that strategy player without the same spotlight or target on his back as Bananas, maybe like second or third rung down, is great. Jordan, maybe even a better pick as far as the physical goes, but can be a bit harder to work with, I think. So Wes, as a number one pick, as much as I don't think he's the best competitor, he may actually be the best partner. And they're two different things. And Zara probably did an amazing job by picking him.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Wes getting picked first, it's always fun because even though Wes and Bananas have become friends over the last couple of seasons, there's probably still that frenemy rivalry between them. And Wes would definitely be talking to Bananas about this even when the show's done. Well, who got picked first, Mr. Seven-time champion? Who do people think about when they had to pick? And it was funny because, you have that confessional about Wes saying, well, I'm pretty much the best at this and that and this. And he just keeps talking in the confessional, which was hilarious to see. I love Wes. He was my number one pick as well for the draft this season. So I really enjoyed seeing him get picked here in the first place. I think it is amazing. Now we will go to Kaz, who was the second place female. She got Jordan. I think it's a solid choice. Jordan is someone that has got one of the highest hit rates when it comes to eliminations and when it comes to winning finals when he gets there. So I think this is going to be an absolute lethal team because Kaz was impressive in her own season, and you've got two champions working together.
Yeah, absolutely. This team is scary. Jordan, probably not the best at staying out of eliminations. He can rub people the wrong way for sure, so that might not necessarily be good for Kaz, but as far as someone to go down into the sand with, these two look like they could be some of the most unbeatable in the game.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how that's going to go, especially with Kaz, like her martial arts background being in Muay Thai. I always have respect for other fellow martial artists. I've done karate for a very long time. So, we kind of respect that. And I know what skill set that will bring to the arena when you go into eliminations. You're used to a one-on-one confrontational type of environment to go one-on-one against people, and Jordan's not going to quit. And it's so satisfying to see Jordan get someone like Kaz this season after he had to drag Anissa last season all the way to the end and then struggled with her in the finale, because it could have been a very different story for him if he had a capable partner, someone that could run the game with him. Another really interesting pick here for me, and maybe we won't go through all the teams, but we'll go through a few, and you can mention a few if you want to bring them up as well, was this team here. It's Team Powerhouse. Danny, he had the option to pick someone. Apparently his wife told him before the show started, pick between Tori or Janae. What do you think of his wife's advice? Do you think it was sound?
Yeah, absolutely. She's the defending champion from the flagship. She's been a strong competitor for a long time. I think she's, as far as personalities go, maybe there might be some stuff with Jordan this season. Or hopefully not. I don't want that again. But I mean, she's a great pick. Like I said, she could potentially, the puzzles are a weakness of her, but she could have potentially been the number one pick for the women as well, I think, considering her physical capabilities, her networks, her friends. Maybe not as strong this season when you consider the legends that are there, but generally she gets far and she goes deep every single season. And now she's learned how to actually win as well. And she's got that fresh in her mind and she'll want to repeat that. So a great pick, I think.
Yeah, listen, Danny is someone that's a bit of an all-rounder. He can do puzzles. I don't think he's a puzzle master, but clearly he had to do well in the finale of the Challenge USA to go out there and win it. He was one of the few people who could actually do the last puzzle. Most of them ended up quitting out because they couldn't finish it. So
Including
I think that
Sarah, perhaps, we don't know for sure. The
I don't know.
controversy there.
I've got no idea, but I mean, Sarah's not bad at puzzles though, so I don't know if she did quit or not.
Yeah.
From her time in Survivor from memory, but Danny and Tori being together, definitely team powerhouse. You're not going to go up against them in a hall brawl. I don't think they're going to be thrown in anytime soon, and I do have a feeling that Team USA is going to dominate strategically this season. So I think that for Tori, this is a very good place to be. She's obviously the defending champion coming in after having just won her first season, so overall, this bodes really well for both of them. I do want to go into another really interesting choice here. Team Casey and Team Ben together, which is in the USA as well. What did you think of this pick by Ben? He said Casey won Big Brother the same year he won Survivor, so that's why he went that way.
Casey's an awesome partner to pick. She is a gamer. She'll go and she'll go hard. We know what she can do physically, and she doesn't bring a lot of drama or stress to your team either. Because of her, the way we say that it's she's not necessarily the most entertaining contestant on the show. That also allows you to fly under the radar a bit. She's not attracting attention. She's not making enemies, and she can go. She can go hard. We saw, like, even when she basically medically DQ'd in a final, she was still drinking everything she needed to drink while Fessy stood by the side and watched. So Casey goes hard, and she's won. She knows what that's like, and great pick from Ben. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one. I do agree with Lissy that they're probably going to be a bit of a boring pair together. I don't know how much action we're really going to see out of it. I do think Ben, if you push his buttons the wrong way, can be really confrontational. So we're probably not going to see that from Casey, but Casey could also bring a calmness out of Ben with them working together. But I think it's a really good one for him because, she's been playing recently, so she can ingratiate him with some of the players that are kind of the regular veterans that we see on the show currently. Let's have a look at another team here coming in this season that I think personally, I'm very high up on this team. I think this team could be the champion team. Theo and Sarah together. Sarah picking Theo. Theo's coming into this season not as a champion, but as a runner-up of probably one of the toughest finals we've ever seen on the challenge. And Sarah herself, one-time Survivor winner, one-time Challenge USA winner. I think together these two are going to be very impressive this season.
This is the scariest team by far, I think. And the fact that, like, Theo said it when people were getting picked, he's like, put some respect on my name. And he got to be the second last pick, I think is going to sit funny with him. So Sarah lucked out by him falling so far in that draft. He doesn't have the same legendary status, but put him next to anybody in this game physically, and he's almost going to dominate. That maybe, like, with the way Sarah is, she's showing it right now that strategy is she's pushing and she's playing hard. If that goes against her, I don't think it's going to matter too much because throw them into elimination and they're coming out against pretty much anyone in here, I think. So very physically strong team that can go far if given the right circumstances, for sure.
Yeah, Ryan here is saying hashtag team intimidation. Lizzie's saying so much toxic competitiveness. Sarah and Theo are going to be volcanic. I can't wait for it. I think they're going to give us a lot of entertainment. It was interesting to see when they did the daily where they had to run over the sand dune and go down the other side. Theo was miles ahead of anybody else. Like, no one was even close to him. Like, Theo has been ready for this. He's been training. He's been begging to come back onto the show. You just know he's not going to waste this opportunity playing the game. So I'm very interested to see where things are going to go for them this season. Now, another one here that we need to bring up is obviously the Australian champion, Troy, choosing, I think, somebody that's becoming fast becoming a new fan favorite for challengers, Amber, in this season. I love this combo playing together. I'm just worried for Troy because we spoke about this in the draft. I feel like if I've right with my time schedule for when she got pregnant and when it happened, it might be that, she could get pulled from this game very easily if she's pregnant while playing.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those teams that I think is high variance. There's obviously a lot that they can do really, really well, but there's also some weaknesses there. Amber has now been diagnosed with on the autism spectrum, but we saw that she struggled with puzzles and was it? Did she actually say she was dyslexic or just some
She
of
did.
the number? Yeah. So that
one of her, I think, her first season, which she played with CT, she said that.
So Troy is all right at puzzles, I think, if I remember right.
He's very good. He's an all-rounder.
So it's not going to be an issue there, but I mean,
She can run. She
she
can
can
run.
run. Absolutely, he can
It's all-
run. We know that the that stuff, but they're probably the two smallest competitors on the season as well. So if luck goes against them and they get put into a hall brawl or what, we know Troy can do pole wrestle, that's for sure. But if there's one of those activities that the physical strength and size is an issue, that could be a thing. But two together, very strong competitors. They seem like they're built for a final. That's for sure.
Oh, you don't want to run against them in a final.
Yeah.
I've always said Amber in a final is dangerous because all she needs to do with her partner is run, and she can run, and Troy can run. And Troy reminds me of the Aussie Jordan. He doesn't have much weaknesses in his arsenal, and he's very good at thinking on the fly and changing things up. Now, a duo that's going to become very, I think, problematic this season is Tristan and Kellyanne getting paired up right at the end. Kellyanne, what did you think of her being completely snubbed here and being picked so late in the game? Well, basically not being picked. They were automatically put together.
I mean, it sucks for anyone to get picked last in the schoolyard pick, but it's fair. Like, look who she's up against. She would be the last pick for me, I think. Right?
Mm.
I'm like, even
Yeah.
against Naya, like who another one that legendary status probably doesn't really apply to. But I'd even pick Naya ahead of her because like she's much more physically strong. She's Hurricane Naya, but Kellyanne is showing that she can have her own hurricanes happening as well. So, and Tristan, I don't know. There's nothing to even say about Tristan and his performance so far, except
Tristan is a dark horse. He's
Yeah.
someone that can still come back and do well. But I listen, he obviously, shit the bed on the first day and got last place. Ended up with Kellyanne.
backed it up on the second.
Yeah,
He
the
did the
problem
same
with
thing.
Kellyanne. The problem with Kellyanne, and this is why I didn't pick her earlier on this season. I love Kellyanne as a character on the show. I think she's amazing. I felt really bad for her when a lot of her friends turned their backs against her this episode. But the problem is that she does get into her own head, and most of the time she's her own worst enemy when she plays the game. So I've got a feeling Tristan is someone that is going to shut down when that happens instead of knocking her out of it. And I think Kellyanne is just going to self-implode. So I have got very low hopes for this team getting deep in the game. If they do end up being the team at the end of this episode that they throw in, I'm a bit worried for them going into an elimination.
Yeah, well, I mean, the silver lining is that we don't have to worry about them for too much. I think they'll be gone pretty quickly if things continue. Because Kellyanne, her friends already turned on her, and the way she reacted to it and stuff is putting people off even more. So I don't know how she can. And we know as well, one of the big strategies in the challenge is once someone's already voted in or whatever, you kind of just keep going to that well, right?
Yeah. Let's talk about Team Hard for a second here. Nelson and Hui, I believe is how it's pronounced, together in this team. Nelson, he's taking it like a champ at this point, even though he's not a champ. He admits, like, listen, I've been out there a few times. I've never really proven myself as of yet. I wasn't expecting to be the first draft pick going into this.
And he shouldn't be. And he's shown again. Nelly's one, like, I know if they put the stats up, like they were doing the competitors cards, which is great. He's got 3 wins, daily wins. Last season only, if they put his numbers of how many challenges, it was 53 or something now. So Nelson is, when I saw the preseason cast announcement, I was like, one of these things is not like the other. And to me, Nelson just stands out like a sore thumb. And we're seeing it early, whether it's because of his partner, who knows, but he was the last pick, and then they were the last performing, so, or did not perform well either. So Nelly, I love Nelly, like you said, heart and all that sort of thing. And when he did win a challenge this season, I was on 38. I was super stoked, but he does not belong on this show.
Yeah, Lizzie here bringing up that Johnny has never been on Kellyanne's side. They were at odds every season they've been on. Not surprised at all if he poisoned the well upon arrival. And I think that's where, Wes is in a bad spot this episode, because obviously he's dated Kellyanne before. Kellyanne and him seem to be on good terms in All Stars 3. They didn't really go head to head against each other, but he's kind of he's chosen to take the stance of where's the numbers at. He's playing a very pragmatic and logical game. And one of the things I really enjoyed about Wes this episode was where he said, this is not a country game. This is a Wes and Zara game. We're not Team UK. And I've got to say, if I was to play the game, I probably would play it kind of similar to that because he's not focused on, because Bananas is in Team USA, I can't work with Bananas, because he's got that connection and he's got relationships that are coming into this game that transcends whatever team they're in, right, Kahuna?
Yeah, I mean the team thing, the way they've kind of done the format is silly anyway. When I first heard the idea, I remember thinking, "Oh, great! Like we can have these factions where it would be." I think it was War of the Worlds where they did that, right? It was Team Europe or Team UK, whatever it was, and you could actually do it legitimately. And then I remember thinking, "Oh, hang on a sec. There's like how many franchises from the US, and they're just going to team up, against everyone else. So it wasn't fair. So I'm glad that they did mix up the partners, but then still keeping the team thing doesn't make sense because all the teams are mixed. There's all over the place. So I don't know why they did it. Just play it normally like a partner game if you're not going to keep them in their country teams anyway.
I think the only people that are going to play the team game are going to be the MVPs coming into this season who's got some sort of a connection with those teams. The vets are going to care less about that in this season. Now, I do want to bring up Yes, since Andrea Lee said, who was it, Andrea Lee or somebody said that they were surprised of how far Yes was down the picking order, but Emily ends up with Yes. Now, we know Yes is a very solid competitor. I don't know where him and Wes are sitting currently and if that rivalry from All Stars 3 is going to carry over or not. But Emily is a workhorse, man. Like, she is someone you don't want to see in a lot of eliminations unless you're Kiki. Since Kiki has already won one against her, Emily was pretty dominant in eliminations her season as well. So I'm really interested to see where this team can go, especially since Emily and Sarah is forming a bit of a relationship and it looks like they're strategically going to work together in the game this season.
Physically, this team is absolutely towards the top. Emily is a beast. I think people are trying to give comparisons to Laurel. I think put them against each other, and Emily stomps on Laurel. To be honest with you, like I know she's on a reality show, but she's an actual 4-time Olympic medalist. She's a gold medalist. She's literally the fastest swimmer on the planet when she gets in that water. And if there was one scene in the episode, and I hate saying this because it's going to come off creepy, but it was when she was in the bedroom and they were changing, and you could just see her physical stature looks very different to a normal person.
Very muscular. That's a swimmer's body. Yeah.
That swimmer's body, the shoulders and everything, right? Like it's crazy. And Yes can definitely hang. The only thing I'm worried about this team is that Yes is like Mr. Integrity. I don't even like US because you're sneaky. And Emily was like, I'm not here for my country. If I'm going to go against my own team, I'm going to go against my own team. And that combination could end up being volcanic as well, depending on what they want to do strategically and if they're actually going to clash when it comes to how they want to actually play it out as well. So that could be really interesting. But competitive wise, great team.
Yeah. No, I think she's going to do really well physically. I do think that people forget it's not easy to win gold medals at the Olympics.
It's different level. It's
different
a completely different level. Yeah.
And again, she's not Lolo. I know some people have mentioned Lolo. Lolo played herself out of the game, and mentally, I feel like she was struggling out there. Emily is mentally very strong, so.
Lolo as well was an Olympian, but she was not a gold medalist at her, like in track. She ended up getting it later in Cool Runnings.
Bobsled. Was it bobsled? Yeah, bobsledding.
Bobsledding. But Emily is legitimately like one of the best on the planet at what she does, right? Like it's very different levels to what we're seeing here. So again, when we talk about, they're using the terms like areas of expertise and stuff, that is a physical thing. Game, strategy, politics, relationships, all very, very different. I'm not saying she's a lead at that, and we're going to find out this season if she is or not.
Yep, 100%. Now, I do want to bring up Bananas and Justine as a team. Justine is a bit of a fan favorite, someone that I think everybody loves. In the US, when she did the US season, she had such a great personality. She was very close with Sarah and that side as well. So I see Sarah and herself working very closely again this season. She's with Bananas, which he was a bit weird. I felt like this episode when they were talking in the room, and it was kind of like, is that his way of flirting, or is like, oh, I don't trust easily? Like, what's going on here? Like, I just didn't feel Bananas this episode and the way that he was. It's kind of like Justine needs to prove herself to be his partner and talk strategy with him, basically, is kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, and she had to defend herself. I'm not here to get dragged along. I can carry, I can do my own thing.
Yeah,
And Bananas
was it a D1 soccer player or something like, or D2? I
yeah,
can't remember.
D2. But Bananas is Bananas. He is for most people and for me at the moment, he is the GOAT. But I do worry that we're now seeing the downhill of that peak. The downs. He won recently a couple seasons ago, got to the finals again, and if it wasn't for one cinder block, he was dominating that finals as well. So Bananas is a legend for a reason. Paired with a young mentee that is physically capable with like Justine, absolutely it's a strong combination. But yeah, he was being weird, and we know that Bananas has a thing for rookie girls coming in. Ends up being I don't know if it was like along those lines, but that's his thing.
He's
He
getting a bit old now for these,
yeah,
20-something-year-old girls coming into the game.
well, Justine, I think, is the youngest on the USA side, or on both USA and any of the Americans anyway. And I think she's
Yeah.
28. So it's not like she's, as I said earlier, the whole thing about this game skewing older automatically makes it not as bad, but he's a creep anyway. So I love Bananas. I think he's the best ever. And I think I love watching him. I think the challenge is Johnny. But yeah, I can recognize when he's being weird.
Hashtag Team CT on this side. Let me just put that out there. Lizzie says Bananas was checking out Kiki. I think if he does have another gross showmans, it'll be with her. I think
Everyone
Kiki
should be checking out Kiki at all times. That's what it is. That's why.
I think Kiki had a man coming into this though, didn't she? Yeah,
Yeah.
she's been dating. Andre Lee, not that it stopped anyone in the past. The episode should have been called or retitled I'm Feeling Hot Part 1 and Part 2 for the conversation that happened between Bananas and Justine. Let's have a look. Who have we not spoken about here?
What about Kiki and Darrell?
Yeah, Kiki and Darrell's an interesting one.
I'm dubious of her pick there. I don't know. Being the fourth pick, Darrell, and it feels weird to say someone as good as Darrell and what he's done in this game to go, oh, I don't know if he should have been picked that high when you consider like normally he would be one of the top picks because the competition across the board isn't as strong. But with a murderer's row of what we have here, for me, his recent track record, it's like, what have you done for me lately? I probably would have gone Theo over him, and yes, over him at this point, I think.
I mean, let's put a little bit of respect on Darrell's name. Like he did make 2 finals in All Stars. Quite recently. Yeah, but still, he made 2 finals quite recently in All Stars. His last showing on the challenge was with Veronica, who she's not in her prime at the moment either. So I don't feel like he came in with a partner that could run at his pace. I do get Darrell is not who he used to be. He's not the 4-time in a row champion that we saw go out there and set that record. And sometimes, players, they lose it. I feel like CT is the opposite of that. He gets better as he gets older, where, some people just, like even Bananas, I feel like we're starting to see a decline on Bananas. If you look at the last season, he just wasn't been able to run at that pace. But you can't really blame Kiki for going for a 4-time champion, for someone that's recently still made finals, who's got some connections in the game. So I don't hate this choice.
I think Darrell's weakness is his connections in the game. He's always like so chill and like he doesn't have
He's a good partner.
He is a very good partner, but as far as the politicking side, because he stays out of it and kind of keeps his nose clean, he also doesn't have the connections that will keep him and stand by him and protect him. And being a floater without those deep things, he often gets put as the sacrificial goat, if you will. And he's made that decision. He's like, no, I'm a family man. I'm not really in it for the relationships. I'm here for a paycheck to look after my family. And I think that's one of the consequences, that Darrell is cool with everyone, but also not like super deep with anyone. And it kind of puts him in a place where it makes him vulnerable. And Kiki, we've seen already being targeted, and Emily not willing to go to bat for her either. So they could go into eliminations. They have a very good chance of coming back anytime they step down there. But I don't think they'll have the relationships and politics to stay out of danger the whole time.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting and long season. Now, some of the Argentinian teams that are together here, they're the ones that I feel like are at the biggest risk potentially of going early based on what we've seen. You know, you've got Rodrigo and Naya together here as well as a pair. What do you think of this pair? Because I didn't really watch Argentina. I do think Naya is intimidating for a lot of girls. Like, she's big, you know, going up against her, and she is someone that is actually proven to be decent at eliminations. It'd be interesting to see who would go up against her head to head, but I don't think Rodrigo is necessarily gonna, you know, there's not going to be a lot of fear for the guys to go up against them.
I mean, that was her area of expertise, right? Elimination specialist or whatever. But they can't even communicate. They don't speak the same language. Like, it's going to be
Yes.
so hard when they're trying to do puzzles, or where working together is such key. And then you've got a fiery personality in Naya as well. Like, maybe she's settled down over the years, who knows? But then you've also got the potential whatever is going to happen with Jordan and Tori. Like, is that going to be a thing as well? So this team has not a lot of positives like going for them, except around, like you said, the strength and intimidation of Naya, and they have a lot of things that could potentially be working against them. I don't see them going deep. I'm not a big fan of that team. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Naya as a character. I don't think she should have been in this set of legends, to be honest with you.
Now, the other team that we do see here also struggling is Benja and Jody. Jody is someone that clearly, you know, is a great player at the challenge. She's an OG legend of the show, deserves to be there. She was trying everything to get Benja not to pick her in the spot here, which was hilarious to see. And Benja's like, no, I'm still picking you.
Yeah, he even said she won't look at me, and she's doing the, oh, what's that over there? Oh, that's interesting. Just looking in the opposite direction so he doesn't pick her. And that's usually what the teacher sees at the front. So they do pick that kid to read in class when they don't want to. And that's what Benga did to Jody. Again, Argentinian relationships not going to work as far as alliances go. Jody, very good at the game, but also, even though she's in that All-Stars crew, I think as far as the inner circles go, she would be one of the ones that are on the outside, almost like a Darrell as well. So she's not going to have the people going to bat for her either and fighting to keep her in the game. I think they could be in trouble.
Yeah, especially since Benja doesn't necessarily come across as the guy that's going to help them win a lot of, you know, dailies. So you kind of have to win dailies to stay safe. Like Jody and Brad and All Stars, when they were teaming up, were just phenomenal to see together. But I don't think Benja's going to be the Brad to her Jody this season. Hector asks, do we know if the people of Argentina have translators at the house? I'd hope so. And this is one thing we didn't mention. It was pretty cool to see the hosts of each one of the shows there together at the start to, you know, cheer on the MVPs as they were going through that first trials sort of thing that they went through to get placed, choosing the teams. We've spoken quite a bit about the teams. I do want to talk about the daily. The daily, they have to go and run over the sand dune. They have to grab these heavy chains. I think it was like 700 pounds or 350 kilograms, depending if you're using the metric system or not. And they have to pull this, and the further they pull it up, the easier the puzzle is. And if they go for the first one, the puzzle is more complex that they have to complete. What did you think of this challenge? Have you ever gone on sand for a bit of a run out on the beach, Kahuna?
Well, I mean, run is something I don't do often. Yeah, I hate the sand and I hate the beach.
Unless you're being chased, right, Kahuna?
Yeah, well, I'll just sort of drop where I am and go do whatever you need to do. I'm not running. Because if I'm running away from someone and getting chased, they're just walking, and like there's no challenge there. But no, I do recognize and hate walking, at least not running on the sand and the beach. It's hard. It's more of a slog than just normal. And when you're carrying a big ass chain, which is also digging in and burying itself in the sand as you drag it along, it's incredible. And I talked earlier about the epic scale of what the challenge can do, and this is one of those times where every time they would use a drone shot, and you're seeing these dunes with almost like ant-sized people like it was such a visual spectacle, like a really great challenge, and obviously it was grueling and hard as hell as well. So I loved it. I love seeing it. I think the giving that choice as well of the difficult puzzle versus the longer thing, it's almost like Sweat versus Savvy in Survivor. Like can we do the physical and we'll just be the workhorses that will drag it further, or are we smart enough to use a puzzle so we can get that advantage there? Interesting choice.
Yeah, no surprises seeing, Janae being good at the puzzle part of this, Grant being a workhorse. They end up running up this dune against Jordan and Kaz, and they beat them, which is impressive because I thought that Kaz would do a bit better in this scenario. But Janae, once again, proving that she can hang with Grant when it comes to this. How big of a target does this now put on Grant and Janae? Because Grant has gone back to back at this point in the game, winning power.
A lot. I believe I think I've heard someone say that Jordan probably didn't win on purpose, that he could have
All
got up
right.
that, yeah, and not wanting to put that spotlight on themselves and that target, which is what we were talking earlier about, challenge strategy versus survivor strategy. Like if you're not going in, if you're not in danger, then sometimes they will deliberately not win because they don't want that danger of having to make a decision, having to say someone's name, having
Yeah.
to put someone down. And if you don't need the immunity, then you don't need that stress. And I am wondering if Jordan actually did that on purpose, because Janae was saying in one of her interviews, that she could hear Jordan telling her from behind, like he was motivating her to get up the hill. I don't know if he was doing it like a trash talk, like I'm coming to get you, like you're hopeless, I'm getting you, or
Yeah.
go, 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 like let's go. And Janae said that Jordan pushed her up the hill just as much as Grant did from the front as well. So
He is
I
really encouraging. That's one thing I will say about Jordan when it comes to like the physical stuff and trying to push through stuff. He seems to be that person that is encouraging and would want to get people across the finish line, which is pretty admirable. But I think you're probably right. There might be a scenario where Jordan thought to himself, my connections in the game are strong. Maybe he's got a good connection with Janae as well. I mean, they've recently played an all-star season together. Maybe she's not going to come for someone she actually knows better than some of these other vets she hasn't played with in how many years. So I feel like he probably wasn't, if it was someone else in front of them, maybe he would have, pushed it back into, what is it, fifth gear or whatever gear you need to put it in to get up there first. So I think that not a bad move from them in that case, if that is what happened here. Interesting to see Jordan also in this episode doing the burn vote, trying to explain to everybody what it is, what he's doing. Is that vetsplaining to the newbies?
Yeah, Bananas going, that, by the way, is a burn vote. And Jordan was like, shut up, Bananas. Like, pretending to be upset with him, which is pretty cool. And that's one of the dynamics that I love seeing, is that in a show like this, is that you've got all these new people coming in with their own dynamics because they had their show where they were the ones competing together for weeks on end and building that bond. But you've also got that next to people that have literally done it for 10 years or 20 years, depending on who it is. And there's these relationships that are outside of the game because they do so much press together, they do reunions, they are in each other's lives, and you see it play out in the context of a crazy competition where it's cutthroat and physical and people get hurt and all that, which is a fascinating thing that I love about the challenge.
Yeah. Lissy here saying Jordan reminded Janae that he's like the Great Gatsby, mysterious.
Yeah.
But overall, we see that it's going to come down to two different teams struggling here. I think it was Kellyanne and Tristan and Nelson and Huey that was struggling, but Nelson and Huey is straight into the elimination. They can't get it done. Surprise, surprise. Nelly T, not good at puzzles out there, Kahuna.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, surprise, surprise. I don't know. Like, Nelly can run, and that's about it. Like, he doesn't really, I don't know. Physical. Like, well, even the physical stuff, like he's not the biggest guy, even though he's very like jacked. He's just physical stature. He's not big as some of them.
Put respect on his name. That whole brawl against Fessy was
Fessy.
Pretty impressive.
I know.
That was impressive because he hung in there for a long time.
And it was Fessy. Like he's completely outsized, outmatched, outgunned in every way. Yeah. Absolutely, it was impressive.
Yeah.
But if
he puts in like half the time he puts in the gym into reading a book or like doing some puzzles in his free time, like I think he could become a challenge champion, but he's not putting in that amount of time.
Scuba Nelly. That was never actually a thing. He didn't really learn how to swim that well. But even things like when they do, like, I mean, how many times are there challenges where they're throwing it at targets or hand-eye coordination stuff? He also doesn't really do well in those things either. It tends to be just the run and not much else. So you put a puzzle on it, and yeah, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know who he's going to go against in the elimination, but looking up and down the list of teams, he would be at the bottom of that for me as well, except for maybe Tristan Kellyanne, because I have no clue.
Lizzie here says, I've met Nelly before. He's a lot shorter than I expected. So good looking, though. I can see that. I mean, the guy does well with the ladies. And one thing I will say about Nelly, I did say this after last season when he did not take revenge on Fessy. Like, I would love to have a friend like that. Like he seems like, I don't know how good of a friend he would be to girls. I feel like he is a boy. He's there for the boys. He'd be a good friend for guy friends. I don't know how good of a friend he would be to girls because we've seen him be pretty toxic to Ashley the season before, right? When they were all playing together. The one before that, I can't remember exactly. They all kind of merge into one for me at the moment because the themes have all been sort of the same.
He had a big thing with Kayla as well in one of the. They had a big fight in one of the nominations. Like he was basically saying, shut up, girl, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, he's had some horrible moments for sure. But Andrea Lee here says that the chain challenge, in my opinion, Brit strength is not enough. One needs a balance between endurance and strength. Yeah, and also technique, right? Because there were people who were pulling bits of the chain up at a time instead of dragging the whole chain up, which I think also was a different technique used by those teams that did better at it. But it did come down to the puzzle, and that is really where Nelson and Hui really struggled trying to get through this. But they go back to the house. There's a lot of strategizing that's happening at this point. Kellyanne is immediately very nervous about her position in the game. She's panicking. She's talking to Wes. She's talking to Janae, all these people that she hopes have her back in the game. But, the coldest move here at this point is made by Wes. And Theo lets him know, like, man, I don't know if I could have done that.
Wes is cold as hell. He'll I don't, but like, it's how long ago were they actually, like, he's married?
Long time ago.
The X thing kind of fades over time, doesn't it? Now she's just another cast member and friend that he works with. He's a colleague, or she's a colleague. So I don't know.
But it still hurts Kellyanne because it looks like Kellyanne is like, even though we've been divided or we've split up for so many years, Wes still has that part of me that can get me really upset about what he does, So it's sad to see because you don't want people's real feelings to be heard out there.
Oh, absolutely. And you could tell that it really was. Kellyanne was taking it very personally. Jordan already did the burn vote thing, so he could have gone down that. He didn't need to actually vote for Kellyanne. No one was going to be offended with the second burn vote, I don't think. And Wes, I think, has enough political capital and social capital that he could have gone, and said, yeah, I burnt it on someone else, knowing it wasn't going to work. I just didn't want to say Kellyanne's name. I don't know. Like, I think it's one of those things where I wouldn't have done it, but I also don't think nothing's going to come of it. Like, she's not going to be able to pull anything against him by being upset. So it doesn't really matter consequence-wise.
And also, she knows what show she's getting herself into. She knows these people backstab and betray each other and, feelings are going to get hurt. So in some ways, you're like, come on, Kellyanne, this is not your first rodeo. Like, they like to remind the MVPs, they've done this a lot of times. They should know that this could potentially have always been the case, that they were outnumbered. But I think what really hurts Kellyanne is that she is being chosen to go in there potentially ahead of somebody like Jody, who also isn't that well connected in the game. And that is quite interesting that at this point, Jody is kind of being saved a little bit more here. And I wonder if that isn't strategic in a way where they're like, well, if we can get rid of Kellyanne and Tristan, who has already won a challenge, that's a good thing for us as a team because we're getting rid of a big threat that are going up against both Nelly and Hui in the game.
I mean, Tristan hasn't shown them that they don't know what's going on in their shows, remember? They didn't even know if anyone's British or Aussie or what. So I don't know if they're putting the respect that, he's a threat. They're seeing what's going down and thinking, you know what, these are probably easy picks that aren't going to come back and actually hurt us. Because that's always a thing as well. If you vote them down, that could always come back as well. And they're probably thinking if they do go in, like, who cares? They come back. They're not going to win dailies. They've shown that so far. And if they go into elimination, we're probably going to beat them as well if there's some sort of revenge. There's no real plays for them, so I think they were an easy choice.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because Kellyanne, while she's melting down, she's having conversations with different people. And one of the conversations that stood out for me was when she was talking in the room where Danny and Sarah was in that room, and they were talking about voting the Americans out because there's too much numbers in that side at that stage. And Tori's like, I'm in the American team, right?
Yeah.
And immediately she goes to Sarah, and Sarah's like, if they're not, if they're coming for one of us in the alliance, we got to be ruthless. We got to cut them. So I kind of feel like she was just, pouring fuel on, like gasoline onto the fire at that stage.
Kellyanne is a legend of the challenge and of the real world. She's not a legendary competitor and definitely not a legendary strategist, which we've seen play out now. Her paranoia and even going to Janae, which I thought was one of the funniest things, because Janae was well, like, what would you do if you were me? I wouldn't vote you in. Is what I would do, which I thought was great. Very obvious. Like Janae was like, what answer were you expecting from her there? She's gonna say that she's desperately trying to stay in, knowing that the writing's on the wall, and she probably looks at Tristan and how they performed in that challenge as well, and goes, well, if we go in, I'm kind of screwed as well with my partner. So it's not like you've got that you can go, look, even if we go in, I'm at least with a strong elimination partner. She doesn't have that like backing her up either, so she's worried, rightfully so.
Yeah. For me, the most interesting thing was seeing Wes being able to convince Zara to go against Tristan in this stage, to say, we're not going to be playing this UK, USA, Argentina game. And we had a question that came in earlier from one of the live listeners, and apologies for not remembering your name because it was way earlier. I wanted to bring it up specifically when we talked about nominations.
That's right.
And, that person, whoever that was, thank you for asking the question. Kahuna, do you think that the teams will stay the same throughout this season? Do you think it's going to stay a USA, UK, Argentina, Australian game? Or do you think that there will be a mix-up or a change of the format like we've seen with some of the mainstay shows now, where they sometimes go to two teams and then they split back into different teams again?
I don't know. I think if I was doing this format where you're able to have shows around the world and then the world championship, I would hope and think that maybe you want to try to keep it consistent and repeatable and fair. Like the challenge traditionally, the NTV version, we if people are ever worried about conspiracies in Survivor, the challenge is way worse. The challenge, they'll like change rules on the fly and like change different things just to make the show better. But when you're doing it on this level, trying to present it like one of the
as
fun
like a
ways,
world championship,
yeah,
right?
as
You're
a
trying
world
to present.
championship, I think you're gonna maybe take away some of those tweaks as much. I don't know. It could play out very differently. We've seen the so is it going to be ride or dies till the end, or is it going to be like where you can? There's no algorithm so far, so that's the partners aren't changing like that way. So I don't know. I don't know what we'll see. I'm excited either way. I like the partners that we've got here and what we've seen, so I wouldn't mind seeing who goes all the way based on that. But there are certainly some combinations that would be really cool to see together as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the teams stay the same, and if they do have an opportunity to steal partners, I hope that the legends can't be paired together. I want the legends and the MVPs to remain separate to keep that interesting, because whenever the legends compare together, they just normally overrun over any of the new players in the game, and we don't get to see new players become legendary, if that makes sense. So I want to kind of see the teams remain the way that it is. I hope they don't change it. Trying to think if there was anything else that we didn't mention. They kind of left us on a cliffhanger here, which is my, least favorite way to do the show, is have a cliffhanger, not know who's going to go in or what's going to happen in the elimination. Kahuna, I know you're probably similar to me in that sense. What can we expect moving forward next week, and how did you sort of find the end of this episode?
Yeah, like normally cliffhangers are really going to be like super annoying for me actually, but because I think this week we got the double episode and there was the Kiki elimination and there was so much going on, I didn't get to the end and go, oh come on. I was like, no, I was still hyped that it was such a good double episode there, so it didn't need it, if you will. Normally I would hate that, but I am excited to see. Maybe it means we get a double, like the early one, the first one, and then they might do it again at the end. I just hope this doesn't set the pattern where they're going to cliffhanger every episode and start the next episode with the elimination or whatever.
Yeah. Let's read a couple more live comments here before we say goodbye to everyone. I think we've gone through pretty much everything for this first two episodes. Andre Lee saying, waiting for the brain versus brawn stats down on screen for the trivial Pursuit Challenge. Lissy's saying Jordan reminded Janae that he's like the Great Gatsby. Yep, we've seen that one. Also, Jordan and Janae hooked up before. Believe it was in Rivals 2. So maybe that's another reason why they felt, and it didn't matter who won there in that specific spot. I actually kind of forgot about that. But then Jordan has hooked up with a lot of people. So it's easy to forget. Andrew's saying we've seen that one. The Ruins 2009 is when Wes and Kellyanne was last dating, I believe. Oh. I think they were still dating at Fresh Meats too, wasn't it? Where he cheated it on her with who's the name? Teresa, wasn't it?
Teresa, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I remember that. Wow. Because Evie was there as well. She was like, you need to be a better boyfriend or something like that. Andre Lee saying, do you reckon there will be a future swap team partners twist like other seasons of the challenge? So that's kind of what we just went into. Mm-hmm. I hope not. Were you surprised that Naya Rodrigo weren't mentioned at all? A little bit, but I think Naya's probably quite well insulated with some of the All-Stars people she's just recently played with, and also with Jordan. And probably that's another reason why, it's just who's got less friends at this stage, right, Kahuna?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those political things. Like Kellyanne, that was just a flub to say to Tory, like, vote out USA. But I do think that that's always a thing in this show, is some of these new people don't necessarily know what the background and context of the relationships are that they're working with. So they might want to vote out their partner's ex from 10 years ago. They're not going to know, hey, how can we vote out them? Like, no, because real life consequences. I know this person in the real world. So it adds another level to it, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. Hector here says, even though Kellyanne is not the best competitor, she's still very entertaining. I agree with you. And I love Kellyanne, by the way. She responded to one of my tweets like not that long ago, which was really cool. But then I heard that she also responded to the tweets of Drew and Chantel. So I felt less guilty about not picking her earlier in my draft pick. Lovable Nikki saying Kellyanne's antics and paranoia is legendary, Kahuna.
Yeah, absolutely. They are.
Andrew saying one of the possible reasons is because Benja spoke up on the USA, maybe trying to get rid of the glue that keeps Team Argentina together. Lizzie says TJ did specifically say this season will be played in pairs, so I don't think that they're going to change the format too much, if at all. I don't think so. I think that there is maybe a chance they could steal partners. I wouldn't be surprised by that, but I'm kind of hoping that the teams stick, because I actually really like the teams the way that they've set it up for the season. Carlos, welcome, says, I would hope for the game to go into individual, but with the episode count, it seems unlikely. I don't think it will. I think it'll remain a team-based game, but I could be wrong. I mean, sometimes they change it, like Kahuna says, on the fly, so they could change it even in the finale where, well, your team's got you to the finale, but now it's all for yourself. But it kind of takes away from the World Championship theme of USA versus Australia versus Argentina versus UK, because the legends will Theo then play for the UK if he plays for himself, or does he still play for Team USA? You see, so it takes away from that theme if they did that. Let's have a look here for Lizzie saying that the Kellyanne Janae conversation was so tense. Loved how they edited that. A few people mentioned that Janae and Kellyanne was never really been that close, so it's kind of surprising that it's being portrayed as them being best friends out there.
I think it was more recent because of All Stars.
Yeah, but they weren't technically in the same team. I felt like Janae was always like floating in the middle, and Kellyanne was on her own corner that season as well, So I don't know if they were that close. Hector says Casey has less friends, I think, or Jody. I don't know how her relationship with other vets are at this stage. I think that is it here for this week, everyone.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go for it.
More briny. We like. I don't know what's going on. Like the host, like, why aren't they bringing? Is TJ going to do every episode like this, or was it just the opening that they had the 4?
I think they just had the 4 hosts there to welcome everybody to the show, and TJ is taking over the main hosting gig for the season. I think that's how. I could be wrong. They may bring them back for the finale or something, but that's what it looks like.
They could have very easily done like one challenge each kind of thing, like. What even
how does it work? Like, how does it work when the Argentinian host has to do an episode?
Yeah, that's hard because he couldn't even speak English. Like when he said his one line, it was very clear. But
I don't have a problem with it. I love Bryony as much as you. I love Bryony as much as you, right? But Australia is the least successful franchise out of the 4 that are there. So
and the UK guy was great. He was like, "Oh, oi, bruv." He was,
Yeah, he was good.
he was
You got
awesome.
this for the UK, mate. You got this for the UK.
Come on, mate. Oi, bruv. What?
You're right, mate. You want some water? He was amazing.
Yeah.
I like them. Yeah, he's a good host. But yeah, I do hope that this excitement around the World Championship gives them enough of a reason to try the Challenge Australia season 2, and maybe just do it straight to Paramount Plus in Australia, and maybe just get more Survivor players and Big Brother and Amazing Race players on there instead of making it a Bachelor heavy, Love Island heavy season. You know?
If it does go, it does give me that hope, because obviously how bad it went here, I don't think Channel 10 will be involved as like putting money towards it. But if they can run them out cheap enough, and maybe even if they just did it so they can say they've got it and do a UK 5-episode thing, so at least there's something in the library that they can farm players out of and keep the World Championship going and keeping Australia involved without having a big, flagship show shown locally. Like, it could work that way, I think.
No, I agree with you 100%. Lovable Nikki, thank you for that, saying please like the live. So please like the live. Also, for those that have watched it up until this point, please consider subscribing. I know everybody in the live is subscribed because we've had subscriber-only chat on today. But if you're watching this at a later stage, consider subscribing, hitting the like button, putting the notification bell on so you can know the next time we go live to talk about the challenge and any other reality TV content. There's much more that I'm considering bringing into the channel over the coming months. We potentially will look at Traitors. We'll potentially look at The Mole as that comes in, as potentially 2 more shows to add to the coverage that we do here on the Nullified Take channel. But for now, thank you so much, TNT Live fam, for being with us, asking great questions, keeping us straight. We will be back next week to talk about episode 3. I'm excited about that. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.